It's very, very thoughtful of you, Clint. It's 5:30, so we'll call to order this meeting for Monday, April 19th. Carl, would you start us off with a roll call, please?
Councilmember Remley,
Here, or present.
Ronayne,
Present.
Lunsman,
Present.
Reif,
Present.
Johnson, Reinbold,
Present.
Langer,
Present.
Rux,
Present.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Present. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. First order of business will be to approve this week's printed agenda. I had a request to maybe shuffle a couple of items around for the sake of people in this room's time. So Clint would like to make a motion to switch the order to first of the municipal hangar discussion just before the landscape so that we can get you guys in and out.
I will make that motion to switch those two items under old business.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to move item B of old business to the first spot. Carl, would you, because we've got a one member on the television screen, would you give us a roll call vote for that adjustment to the agenda?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. We will address those items as they appear on the agenda. Next, we've got the approval of the minutes for the last meeting, which was April 5th. Get a motion to approve those minutes.
Moved. Second.
Motion, Councilman Lunsman, second. Councilman Reif, does anyone have any changes to the minutes as they were printed? Carl, roll call vote.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. First order of business will be our consent calendar. We've got 5 items of routine city business with the possible approval of the vote here tonight. Can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar items?
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Councilman Rux, second, Councilman Ronayne. Over there, anyone have any adjustments to those? Otherwise, Carl, would you give me a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. So, old business, we've got a possible first reading and passage of resolution of intent to lease the municipal hangar to a private person for 5 years with one renewal option beginning in 2021. Possible approval of that resolution stating the council's intent to lease that property to Daryl Hillstad for fixing a public hearing to consider final approval of such a lease as required by law. Ron, are you going to tell us about that? Rich is here at the podium. Rich, why don't you start us off?
Okay, well, when I was here last month, the recommendation from the council was to take this back to the airport board to discuss the feasibility of keeping the hangar or declaring it surplus. Airport board talked about it and decided that we should keep that as airport property. And they also stand by their recommendation to award Mr. Hillstead the bid.
Because of the amount of input we had in the last one, I'd like anyone in the audience to raise their hand if you feel like you'd like to speak on this topic here tonight. So we've got 2. Perfect. What I'd like to do then, Adam, why don't we start with you? And what I'd like to do is, why don't we give us a limit of just maybe 2 or 3 minutes here, so that this thing doesn't drag us out too bad, but I think that'd be enough time, you think, to get your points across, Adam?
Yeah, plenty of time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Adam Altman, appearing on behalf of Quest Aviation. I'm here tonight to urge you again to reject all of the bids, not set this matter for hearing, and return it for a bid that's transparent and fair to all of the participants. I believe that the way that the bidding process was carried out is fundamentally unfair to Quest, because we didn't know we were competing against the universe of non-FBO bidders. We understood this to be a commercial lease. We based our bid on that accordingly. In addition to that, I believe that the process was fundamentally unfair to all the other non-FBO potential bidders who did not get a chance to bid, because those people understood it, as we did, to be a bid for a commercial lease. When Mr. Hillstead did throw in a bid, you'll note that he was the only non-FBO bidder, because I imagine that many of the non-FBO users of the airport were under the same impression that we were, that this was for a commercial bid. If you go ahead and set this for hearing and consider awarding the bid to Mr. Hillstead, you're prejudicing those potential bidders' rights. And finally, I'd like you to consider the fact that taking this large commercial hangar out of commercial inventory is going to decrease the commercial hangar space available at the airport. You know that Mr. Hillstead won't be able to lease the hangar facility commercially. He won't be able to lease it to other aircraft and hangar other aircraft at the airport. As you may or may not know, I represent Quest, who currently is the leaseholder here, and we make use of that hangar. We rent that hangar space to traveling aircraft that come in. We rent it for a good portion of the winter to the FedEx and the UPS carriers, and then in the non-winter season, we rent it to transient aircraft. And that won't be able to happen. We're full up, and we will be turning aircraft away. They won't be able to FBO and receive FBO hangar services at the airport to the same extent they are now if this hangar is not allowed to remain commercial. I'm not asking you to award it to Quest. I don't believe you can do that. I am asking you to throw it out, redo the bidding process in a transparent manner so that everybody knows what the rules are, and proceed from there and not set this matter for hearing. I'm happy to entertain any questions that the council has.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Adam. Appreciate you coming in, presenting that side of the case. Daryl was next to speak. Daryl, same rules will apply to you. We'll give you 3 minutes. Adam did a good job to keep within that amount of time, so.
Well, I'll try, but I'm not a very good speaker, and I didn't speak at all last 2 meetings, but here we go. My name is Daryl Hillstead. I'm representing Ryan Yenke and some of the taxpayers of Aberdeen. As you know, that the city airport is the gateway or the heart of any successful airport. Not just an airline or the whole airport. It's therefore any decision made about the airport is very important. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm from Siston area, went to Lake Area Votech, was an airplane mechanic. Since then I've learned to fly, moved to Siston, run my own FBO, sprayed, did mechanic work, construction, mechanic, and was the airport manager. I moved to Aberdeen in 1988, rebuilt the Grumman Goose for Ron Rivet, or Quest Aviation, Super 8 back then. Never quite got away from Aberdeen, been here ever since. Since then I've flown many different people, rebuilt several airplanes. I've owned over 25 airplanes, which 5 of them I still own. I own 3 hangars, 2 of them in Aberdeen, 1 in Siston. What can I say? I love aviation. But I feel my main purpose is to educate and promote aviation. Myself and a great bunch of people have done just that. Just to name a few things, we've done the air show in Aberdeen in 2013, Aviation Day in 2019, did a Groton fly-in in 2019, and 2020 we did a Groton fly-in. And Minot Lake Freedom Flyer in 4th of July in 2020. It's a lot of work, and we ask nothing in return. We just love aviation. Ryan Yanarchy, my partner, he got into aviation, got his private in 2010, started spraying in 2012. In 2014, he started his hard deck spraying business in Aberdeen, South Dakota. Enough said about us. We're here to do business. I've been sitting back wondering how and why we got where we are today. I think it's because of lack of education, both the airport and about this hangar. Just to give a little better picture of the airport, we have 35 hangars. We have 42 single-engine airplanes, 16 twins, 7 jets. We can't forget about the medevac helicopter. We have many families that count on this airport for income one way or the other. Pilots, mechanics, airport maintenance, line techs, they pump our fuel, ticket agents, rental cars, etc. You get the picture. There's been lots of questions and confusion about this hangar. I hope I can clear some of this up. First, let's talk about the hangar. It was built in the 40s, and Aberdeen Flying Service leased it, I think, at that time. But when I moved here in 1988, Super 8 Aviation, now called Quest, was leasing the hangar. It was in bad shape. 2006, Quest worked out a deal or agreement with the city that said if Quest repaired it, they would get the lease for 15 years for about $4,800 a year. So Quest spent about $30,000 on the.
Daryl, I hate to cut you off, and I know that you've got some really good information. I think most of the council knows some of this backstory, and only for the sake of time and because I, cut Adam off at 3 minutes.
They spoke the last 2 meetings. I'm sorry, but
oh yeah, that's a fair point. But I guess the bigger question that we've really got is, from the city standpoint, we've given him some criteria by which he'd have to operate if he were to win this, and he's agreed to it.
Correct, Mr. Mayor, in the agenda packet, I did highlight those portions of the proposed lease that would be unique to Mr. Hilliston. Those are the portions that he agreed to. So it is in the agenda packet. Beginning of page 62 of the 133-page packet. You'll see in yellow some of those.
can I answer one question then?
Please do.
To answer Adam's question, or to answer your question, what Adam said. Let's see here. All I'm going to say is, in the bid package, I assume that there was a check in a sealed envelope given to you guys for the bid, right? And in that bid package, or they keep claiming that they've bid off the lease and it was commercial property. How did they know to pay 5% down and put it in a sealed envelope if they bid off the commercial lease? It does not say anything about 5% in that commercial lease, and they keep saying they bid off the lease and not the bid. So it's not unfair. Trust me, they build motels off bid sheets. They know how to bid. That's all
Right.
bogus.
Well, I think that there's really an element of respecting the board's decision in this matter, and I think that like you've definitely answered a lot of the questions that those guys had in particular. Does anyone on the council have any questions for Mr. Hillestad? I think that. I'll go ahead, Clint.
So your main purpose for this lease will just be to store your aircraft, correct?
My airplanes and Ryan's, yes.
Okay.
I have something.
Go ahead, Justin.
Wasn't something sent out to us saying that if we do award this, that we would lose something with federal funding for the airport?
That's incorrect.
Incorrect, yes.
Oh, okay.
I'll say something.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I think just from me sitting here and I'm listening to both sides. I'm guessing the airport board is well aware of the pros and cons of this, and twice they've come back to us now and saying would they recommend awarding this to Mr. Hillestead. So personally, I don't see why we wouldn't do that. That's just my personal opinion on this matter.
Councilman Rux.
Rich, what were the votes on awarding the bid?
At our last airport board meeting was 2-2.
So,
We were missing one though.
We were missing one board.
That voted last time in my favor.
so a 2-2 is not a win.
It's not a win, but it's not a loss either, so it comes back to you with the
Okay.
same recommendation.
Comes back to the original.
So at the last airport board meeting, I did pose to them that they were being asked to act on their prior recommendation, which was a 3-0 vote, to recommend awarding it to Mr. Hillstead. There was no, consensus, no majority vote to change that recommendation at the last meeting.
And I'll throw out a little bit farther. That was about an hour long of discussion with a lot of silence in between it. So I did throw out an alternative of, as Mr. Altman has requested, to throw the bids out, and we'd go and rebid them at a minimum of where the current bid was. That didn't get any traction either. Again, they sent that back. So we did throw that out, which I thought was a pretty good option given the discussion, but you're correct, the board did stand with their original recommendation.
And I mean, it's literally nearly twice the money that some of the other bids were. At the end of the day, you won the bid fair and square. Go ahead, Dave.
One quick question. I don't know if that, Ron, is that for you? During that discussion, we had talked about selling the property. What was the bid or what was the thought process from them? I know what it says in the paper, but there's obviously more than what's on paper.
Well, actually, what it says in the paper is pretty much, yes, that they determined that it was still necessary suitable as a hangar.
2-2, or was that?
Well, I think that was,
It didn't go to an official vote, it was a discussion.
yeah.
And really based on the fact that there's this much interest in this hangar for aviation use, that it still has a purpose.
And
Does-
can I answer Clint's question from last time? Was it you that recommended we sell it or thought about selling it? Okay, what I'm gonna say about that is right now, the government has money out there for you guys for hangar. We can get grants. Watertown owns 40+ hangars. Spearfish owns 52+ hangars. Webster's building a hangar right now. They're getting a grant. Sturgis got $1 million grant. There's all kinds of money out there to make cheaper hangar rent and income for airports. We might want to check in on that. Instead of selling, we should build more.
Well, I don't disagree with you, but I've always had this philosophy that the city shouldn't own property if we don't need to, and like I say, it's just one of those things. We should not be, when not necessary, we shouldn't be a landlord and competing with commercial interests. I mean, that's just a philosophy I've had consistently throughout the council, and no different than the federal building. We sold that after doing what we needed to save the court, and numerous other places that we've leased, we've unloaded just because I mean, it's just a philosophy of mine. It's nothing against you or anything. It's just.
Yep. No, I just brought that up to answer your question. There's a lot of money available, cheap money for hangars.
Councilwoman Langer, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Ron, is there any, with this unfair bidding process, is there any legal implications on that? I'm just curious. I mean,
There are none.
okay.
No legal implications of the open decision. That's the whole point behind this process of declaring a resolution of intent to lease, publishing it in the paper, to give the public an opportunity to come to a hearing, which will happen again, by the way, in the next few weeks. We'll have a hearing to consider this again, and that's the process.
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Langer, with respect to my good friend, the city attorney, I disagree.
It sounds like the crux of the argument against was the way that it was worded, kind of indicated perhaps that there was a reference to a contract and that wasn't the way that the board intended it, or.
I I provided that as well with the agenda packet, and that's at the beginning of page 69 of the 183 page packet. Again, I highlighted that portion of the language that was in question, and then if you go on to the next page, I highlighted that portion in the form lease that was in question. So that's essentially the argument right there.
To whom were those provided, Ron? The
You
old
provided
lease?
Anybody who requested it.
Who requested it?
highlighted, Ron.
Nothing's highlighted.
Oh, you guys, you're not highlighted?
Yeah, I'm like,
That's
I don't
okay.
know, am I like missing that?
Ours,
this
ours
problem
is just said draft.
Oh, okay, well, on page page 69 of 183, there's language that says a copy of the form lease is available from the transportation director. That's in the notice of bidders. And then on the next page, with the form of the municipal hangar lease agreement, there's a whereas, where it says the tenant desires to lease the hangar for the purposes of renting
Right.
hangar storage space to the general public. That's the language right there that the FBOs have been highlighting as far as the fundamentally unfair notion of this bidding process. So that's what I'm telling you. I provided that. With all due respect to my good friend Adam, Quest would not be a litigant in that.
And it's unclear as to whether Daryl desires to lease the space, whether or not he's legally able to. He might meet that criteria anyways. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Do we know to whom that that lease was given?
Rich, do you know who provided copies of this proposed lease?
Daryl was, Adam's office was, and Everett Flying Service. Okay, only the three bidders.
All right, if there's no more discussion, I guess I would entertain a motion to, for the approval of that resolution stating this intent.
Mr. Mayor, the motion is actually extended from last.
Oh.
So the motion is on the table.
Sounds good. So
Do we need a
now-
motion to remove from the tape?
No?
No, oh, it was continued,
It was
never mind.
automatically set. That was the motion to put it on. So it's ready for a vote if there's no more discussion.
Sounds good. Well, if no one has anything further, Councilman Renee?
Yeah, I'm just gonna make a comment. I'm going to vote no on this. I frankly do not believe that this lease frankly affected what anybody bid. I don't think anybody was misled, but I do think that we as a city need to do things right. I think we need to do them properly. I can count noses. I see that this is gonna pass, and this is not a hill on which I'm going to die. But I think we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard, and so my vote on this will be no.
It's okay, my vote's gonna be no too, so, you know.
How many
ju-
noses did you count exactly?
I apparently don't know how to count noses.
Fair enough. Well, I think that I almost agree that the right thing to do in this case would be to award the thing to the winner, to be honest with you. So I guess that would be my stance on it. Josh?
No, I think we have the airport board for a reason, just like we have all the other boards around the city, and I think they understand this issue better or just as good, if not better than what I would understand it. And I'm personally not going to vote against the airport board on this issue. Everyone had the opportunity to bid, and if we go down this road, I'm a little bit apprehensive because if someone in the future loses a bid, they may come back and do something similar, and I don't want to set that precedent. So I'm going to vote yes.
Dave?
I'll pipe up and let you know where I'm at too, is it's not only the airport board, they went back to them twice. I rely on our council also, stating that everything was properly done. So with the fact of it going back to the board twice, we rely on them, and with Ron, I'm gonna vote yes with this.
I'm still not convinced with a 2-2 vote. And it's just, like I say, it would have been, I mean, and I understand the board didn't have a quorum, because I think there's 5 on the airport board. And sometimes with those boards, it is tough, but like I say, a 2-2 vote is, basically it's just kick the can to us anyway. So, because it wasn't a vote up or a vote down. So, essentially, so.
Anyone else? All right, Carl, would you give me a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Rux,
No.
Langer,
Yes.
Reinbold,
No.
Reif,
Yes.
Lunsman,
Yes.
Ronayne,
No.
Remley,
No.
Mayor Shoneman.
Yes. So we've got a tie with 8-8, so that does not pass then. So where do we go from here, Ron?
Well, now, the council needs to consider what option it wants to take at this time. There's a recommendation to potentially reject then all bids and start over again. If the council wanted to, again, this is simply a resolution of intent. There was another bid. You could go to the next highest bid, which was Avenue Flying Service at $9,000 in FBO. That language is not in front of you, so we'd have to redo that resolution of intent. We could put that on for next week. But those are the options. If the council is looking at sending it back to have it rebid, then I think it would behoove you to provide your recommendation as to whether everybody can bid or just FBOs can bid.
I think at that point, we have to completely rebid it and let everybody bid. That was the point. And I mean, the people who voted no, is that what you guys were hoping for?
Something a little more clear
Yeah,
on
something
who's
more
allowed
clear.
to bid.
Okay.
To throw it out there, if we rebid it and had the two types of leases we have, if you put both of those in there, so it's very clear if you're an FBO or a non-FBO, and we would have that set up. I think that addresses some of the concerns. If that's the route you go, I would recommend setting a minimum at what the current bid is now, 13.8. When we start talking about keeping it fair, everybody said I would have paid more if I would have known this. So I think the market, the basement is 13.8 would be my recommendation.
I hereby move to reject all bids and rebid open to anyone with a minimum bid of 13.8.
Second.
Got that, Carl?
So we've got a motion and a second to rebid this entire thing with a minimum bid requirement of $13,800, making sure that bid is open to both FBOs and non-FBO entities. Dave?
I understand where Joe's coming from, but if we're gonna rebid this, aren't we just letting it be at the free market? Whatever is, and I'm assuming that everybody already knows the cat's out of the bag, unfortunately for you. They're either gonna bid at least that or more anyway. I don't see why we need to set a lower level now. Let the market do what it needs to do then, if that's what you guys wanna do.
I'm not opposed to that.
Well, I think that's what the motion would do. I mean, it's just saying that's where, I think Daryl's bid is the standing bid, and somebody's gotta beat him.
No, it was the higher one.
The highest.
Yeah, he was the highest at 13.8, so
it's gonna be the lowest.
I'm sorry, highest, thank you.
Great. Carl?
Just a point of order. Could I get clarification on who made the second to the motion?
Councilman Ronayne.
Very good, thank you.
Clint, did you look to change your motion? Are you good with the way it is?
I'm good with the way it is. I mean, if Dave wants to amend that motion, I'm not gonna oppose that either, so.
I'm not gonna amend it.
Okay.
I'm just gonna vote no.
And pout?
No, I'm not gonna pout. It's just the way it is.
Carl, would you give me a roll call vote on Clint's motion to rebid this thing?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
No.
Reif,
No.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
No.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
I'm going to say no, so we're in the same position as we were before, really, right?
Oh, man. I move to reject all bids and open it up to all FBO and non-FBO and not set a minimum.
May I have a speaker?
Real quick, what have you got?
Actually, there's.
It's no different than the bid sheet is today. I mean, it doesn't, there was no split. These guys understood the bid sheet. They're not they make their living bidding, and the bid sheet is very clear. I've bid many things myself. They're fooling you when they say they don't understand and there's confusion in the bid sheet. It's very, very clear what the bid sheet says. I don't know where you guys are getting this commercial, non-commercial rhetoric. It's, I don't understand it. The bid sheet's very clear. Did anybody take it home and read it?
So what are our options here? My issue with the bid
Just as
process.
a point of order, there is a motion on the table.
Okay.
It either needs a second or to die for a lack of a motion. Or a second.
Second.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second to rebid this open to FBO as well as non-FBO with no minimum bid requirement. So now we'll have a discussion on that.
The issue I have in all of this legitimately is the bidding process is theoretically, like you said, like all the numbers are out, and it just we're going from unfair to unfair. I mean, no matter what, this whole process is unfair. And so I feel like we can't win on this. So I don't even know where we're at this point. I just feel like we're not going to agree because we continue to vote yes and no. And so I don't know what all of our options are. Like, so at this point we've rejected this, so we have to rebid or what, like,
we've
just put so many random things out here. I'm just trying to.
We haven't gone through all the options yet.
Oh, good. I thought everybody was here for the landscape ordinance, so apparently.
Sorry. Ron, what would happen if we just rejected bids? Would that, in essence, send it back to the airport board and they could figure out how to deal with this mess?
Correct. We would have an empty hangar, that's not being used right now, at least for light lease purposes. And then I suppose we would be back on the airport board to make a recommendation as to what.
And they could rebid it then if they chose. They don't need us to tell them how to do it.
They could.
So this would be the third time we send it back to them?
Well,
Second.
At the same point, though, that would take another month where we could start that bidding process sooner, or would the airport board
They
have
could
to
start it tomorrow.
Or could the airport board accept this without us? They
No.
can't. They have to. Okay.
This is a lease of property
So
by
there's-
state law.
So basically us doing that takes it off of us doing it.
Not ultimately.
No.
I mean, the bidding process, if it's just going to get rebid.
Josh, go ahead.
Well, it's kind of interesting, but I personally think Mr. Hillestead should be awarded this, but that's behind us now, right? So the only real option that we have is to rebid this, and the question is, how are we going to rebid it? So do we start at the 13.8 or do we start at 0 and let people bid according to how they want to do it? I personally agree that 0 makes a lot more sense than 13.8, just because we don't want to be involved in setting the market for that hangar. Again, I think it's the best of bad options we have. Probably would be to open it up again for bidding if we're not going to award it to Mr. Hillestead. So I can support that.
Dave.
I'll come back to original I think it went fair, and I apologize to you guys that I personally think that this was bid out properly, and I would like to stay with that. But since it's behind us and we've already rejected that, I think the only thing left on our plate that I can see viable is putting out for rebids and leaving it open. I will vote for that, not because I like it, but I will because that's all we have left.
Sounds good. So we've got our motion and second. Justin, anything to contribute?
I'd be up for setting it back to 0 where we do not set the market value for it.
That's the motion right now.
That's the motion and second we've got. So it sounds like a lot of us will begrudgingly agree upon that outcome with it. So Carl, why don't you give me a roll call vote for that rebid request?
Councilmember Ruggs,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. The airport board will be informed, I trust then. Rich, thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. we will move along to our ordinance number 210404, which amends the landscape standards for new construction and parking lots. This would be the possible first reading of that ordinance. And in our packet, we have a blue amendment based on our session from last week and the meeting that we had therein. I think that, Ron, as far as you setting this thing up, this was primarily with outcome of those discussions from
Right.
last month.
Right, Mr. Mayor. I did provide, again, as the part of the agenda packet, and unfortunately, you guys can't see color, I think, on the on your devices, but we did have a blue line version that tracked the changes that I thought came out of the work session for the council to be able to look at. And then the ordinance, which follows the council action request page, was supposed to just incorporate all those changes, but I see that I already made a mistake. Councilman Rux pointed that out to me, and so we'll be needing to make an amendment. If this is moved and seconded, we'll need to make an amendment consistent with Councilman Rux's request regarding grass in the planting islands.
Move to approve.
Second.
Sounds good. So we've got a motion, Councilman Ronayne, and a second, Councilman Rux, which would be the version 210406, which incorporates the blue line changes as well as the previous red line changes that we had from our meeting last week. So from there, I open the floor to any input. Councilman Rux.
Yes, I'm going to make an amendment to add back in, and it's before you under planting islands, amending section E, to where it would be planting islands must have sufficient ground cover, bluegrass, fescue, or similar sod grasses, and then to add section F, which would allow interior trees to be grouped into a larger island. Each tree of group shall meet the requirements set forth in this chapter, and that was just what was forgot in the changes.
Second.
So we've got a motion, Councilman Rux, second, Councilman Ronayne, to incorporate a new section or make adjustments to section E under 56-214-2, which includes grass, fescue, and other such things, as well as, is that an entirely a new section then, Clint? The interior
No.
trees must be maybe grouped?
Oh, item F is a new section, but section 2E is just adding planting islands must have sufficient ground cover, bluegrass, fescue, or similar sod grasses, and then it continues from the original there.
All right, Josh?
I'm looking through here. I guess I'm not sure what section it was, but we had a discussion right at the end of our last meeting on this about a percentage that we were going to. Yeah, where do we end up on that? I'm just curious. I'm not seeing that. I forget what section that was in.
Percentage for what?
Percentage of required trees to be planted along the perimeter.
If you go to that 56-214 in the second paragraph there, labeled number 1, not less than 50% of required trees shall be located in planted islands. So I think that's kind of how that wound up. So in terms of the motion to, I think that everyone has the right to plant grass as it is in those islands. They don't. It currently states that you have to plant.
It currently states that it has to be 3 inches of organic mulch, wood chips, or bark, or other type of organic mulch with a weed barrier or landscape rock. It does not allow grass in planting islands.
So this simply adds the ability to do grass. You can still do rocks if you wish.
Yep. You could still do rocks if you wish. It just adds more flexibility. And section F would just allow trees to be grouped into larger islands rather than small islands placed throughout the parking surface.
Okay, so literally the only thing, because F is in our adjustment, it looks like maybe both of them are, but they weren't in one of the versions that you had included?
Right, I inadvertently left it out, Mr. Mayor, so I apologize to the council for that.
Okay, does anyone have any input about adding grass to the abilities? Okay, let's take a vote on Clint's amendments, which would affect section E and F under 2, under 56-214. We've got a motion and our second. Anyone else have anything to add? Okay.
Aaron, do you see a negative downside to this? I mean, I have grass right up to my trees at home and don't seem to have an issue.
No, as long as we can keep the mulch ring around them, the grass is not an issue.
Okay.
And we've permitted grass in islands, but yeah, it's not stated directly in there. But there's no downside.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think so. I just wanted to check.
Great. Then, Carl, would you give me a roll call vote on Clint's amendment?
Councilmember Remley, Councilmember Remley, Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got, well, I guess, Councilman Ronayne, did you have an amendment to suggest?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I've circulated before the meeting to council members a proposed amendment to section 56-215. The purpose of that amendment is to frankly clarify, make more readable the first sentence, but then I also have a substantive change I think is consistent with our discussion last week, and it says that in an industrial area there may be perimeter trees or planting islands or some combination thereof. So it is being left to the decision making of the landowner as to whether they want perimeter trees or planting islands. They don't have to choose one or the other. They can have a combination as long as that satisfies them. So I would move the amendment proposed to section 56-215.
Second.
So we got a motion from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Reinbold. So just to be sure, and it looks that way to me, the only change that's of any substance would be that it specifies that a person could choose some perimeter trees and some island trees, whereas before that was kind of left to the imagination. Anyone else have any input on that one? Carl, would you give me a roll call vote on Ronayne's amendment?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley, Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Now, we've still got in front of us the motion and second for the ordinance in and of itself. Is there any other discussion on where we landed or any other amendments that people might be seeking for the language here? All right then. Carl, would you give me a roll call vote on ordinance number 210406, the two working amendments that we've just voted upon?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. It was much quicker than I expected it to be. New business, we've got ordinance 210407, which is supplementing the 2021 budget for various unanticipated projects, activities, and expenses. This would be the possible first reading of that ordinance, and Carl is here to tell us all about that.
Thank you, Mayor. Most of these requested supplements are for items that were not included in the original 2021 budget. As you remember, we were very austere in the original budget, and as the time progressed and we saw that our revenues were still good, and we actually got a COVID grant that was able to be used for police vehicles, fire vehicles, other options for fixed assets. You can see that several of those items are included now to increase those budgets for those items as discussed at earlier meetings. There are a couple of items that are housekeeping, moving money from the gift fund to the capital project fund. The barn that burned at Wiley Park, we needed to increase that budget because that work did not get completed in 2020. And move some funds from the enterprise fund to the general fund for administrative expenses.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Rux and a second from Councilman Reinbold. Any thoughts on this from the council? Carl, would you provide us with a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got confirmation of Mayor Shonneman's appointment of Kathy Zur to the Aberdeen Housing Authority Board. This would be a, let's see here, 5-year term ending in December 31st of 2025. And I will have to give Executive Director Jody credit for this. A lot of the people that I asked to be on this board soundly told me no. Yeah, it really is. Although I think that those guys at the Housing Authority do much of the heavy lifting, and I think the board is probably a relatively instructive group. So with that, I will take a motion to appoint Kathy to the
Move to approve.
Second.
motion. Councilman Reif, second. Councilman Rux. Carl, would you give me a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got approve the agreement with Aberdeen Area Humane Society to provide animal shelter services to the city at a monthly amount of $5,400. Possible approval to enter into that agreement and to provide those services to the city. And Chief, are you going to tell us something about that? Sure. Chief McNeil is here joining us tonight.
While the chief comes to the podium, I want to kind of preface this a little bit, because this was really not a simple operational agreement. It actually started in October. Ron and Chief and I went to a meeting with the Humane Society, and then from that, the chief and I worked through several subcommittee meetings with them. But this is an interesting thing. Sometimes you get reminded in my position of where one place is compared to another, but it reminded me of my childhood, where I loved nothing more than to drive by the dog pound. And it was outdoor cages with little cover where they would put dogs, and if somebody came and got them, I guess they did, and if they didn't, I never really, as a young child, knew what happened. And from that, it grew into a little bit of an indoor shelter. And from that, it kind of went from the city being responsible for that and for animal control to this new organization called a Humane Society. And that was many years ago. And that organization still exists in my hometown. They still do this. And I thought several of the towns along the way have worked with Humane Societies. In my mind, this was an easy partnership. It's their mission. They have a facility. They're part of our community, and let's do this. They weren't quite as excited because we as a city still had the mentality of the old dog pound that I remembered from my childhood, and those aren't always the best memories. And so from there, we've worked through a really, really good agreement. I believe it's good to work with that nonprofit organization. We have a history of working with and supporting those. And that's not to take anything away from the provider. Bonnie, for many years, has done it. She's ready to retire. It's ready for a change. But I just wanted you to know there's been a lot of work into this agreement, and I've enjoyed working with the Humane Society and getting to know them.
Thank you, Joe. Chief, sorry to call you up so quickly. I guess I didn't realize Joe had so much information for you.
No, not a problem. So you're aware our animal control operations are very important to the city and to the citizens and the quality of life we expect in Aberdeen. So, when Bonnie Bitts indicated to us that she was looking at retirement, that kind of put us in a state of real wonder. And fortunately for us, we have an outstanding organization in town, the Humane Society, that is willing to step in and provide that high quality of care and service to the community and the animals that we expect. So before this meeting, I talked to Bonnie, and she's excited to move on to the next chapter of her lives. But she wanted to point out, reminded me that she started her business relationship in 1973 with us, providing animal care services. So, it takes a special person to be able to do that with the right heart and mind, provide animals and work with people, in these situations. So I want to give city manager a lot of credit. You know, we started this talk back in October. The Humane Society, they're a great board and group of people, and I'm just really excited to the next chapter in the relationship that this agreement will establish for us for the quality of care that our whole community and citizens expect in our service and our animal control operations. And they also provide a lot of opportunities in the future through education, helping us get the message to people in our community about responsible pet ownership and different things like that. So I think through their efforts, licensing and inoculation and so forth is going to move forward too. But with that said, I just want to say thanks to Bonnie for all the time and service she gave us and to the city, and we're going to be recognizing her. And if you see her, thank her as well. Does anybody have any questions about the agreement or any operations that we would move forward with in this agreement?
Dave, roughly, how many, was it roughly the same amount of money as the previous agreement, or is it substantially more or less?
It's probably slightly more. You know, I think Joe maybe can speak to that. We basically there's a set fee that Bonnie receives every month for her operations. However, there's a variable in there based on the amount of animals she receives, and many times cats seem to be the variable that's the unknown. So looking at that and the accumulation of those expenses and different things that go into the care and vaccinations and care of animals that we take in, I think we arrived at a good figure, but it's slightly more. So,
I'd like to say something, Mayor.
Go ahead. What have you got?
Bonnie Bitts has been doing this job for a long, long time, and she's never, ever requested a raise until a couple of years ago. And this amount that we're offering the Humane Society is very reasonable. And I think it probably could be raised in the near future as well. So I totally agree with Chief McNeil on this, and Bonnie's done a great job over the years. And I trust the the Humane Society to do a very good job as well.
Thank you, Councilman Remley. Councilman Langer.
I'm just really excited about this. So I just want to say how much I love the Humane Society, and I think it's awesome that we're doing this. I'm so excited, and I know, Joe, you had talked about doing it. So my husband and I have always been huge supporters of the Humane Society, and what they're doing out there is so awesome, and I'm just excited that the city gets to partner with them in this way. And I think we don't get to see fun stuff like this too much, so I'm excited to vote for this and to see what happens.
And I'm mostly relieved that Joe's childhood memories were not putting
Right?
cause to sleep. I thought that's where you were going with
Gosh,
that.
yeah, I was waiting for you to drop that one. I was like, don't go there, Joe. I can't today. I can't cry today.
One of those childhoods. Any other input? Carl, give me a roll call vote, please.
We need a motion.
Oh, we're way ahead of ourselves
Moved.
here.
Second.
Got a motion, Councilman Ronayne. Second, Councilman Reinbold. Now, would you give me a roll call vote? Thanks.
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next we've got, thank you, Chief. Oh, you're still with us because of the next one. Authorized payment to Pearson Ford in the amount of $146,598 for the purchase of 4 2021 Ford Explorer police wagons. This would be the approval to make that, authorize that payment for that amount for these vehicles to Pearson Ford. So Chief, tell us about those.
You're probably well aware, thanks to the efforts and some of the funding that we've received recently and different programs, we're asking for your permission to purchase the 4 vehicles that you have in front of you. One vehicle, we were fortunate to receive a grant from the state. So with your willingness, we're asking for the amount of, $14588, the total of the 4 vehicles, the Ford Explorers we're asking for.
Move to
Move to approve in the amount of $146,598.
Second.
A motion, Councilman Ronayne, a second from Councilman Lensman. Does anyone have any questions for the chief? All right, then Carl, give me a roll call vote. Authorize those payments, please.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Oh, we'll see if something beat.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the recommendation on bids for the Melgard Road and Lawson Street traffic signal improvements. This would be possible approval to award the bid to Ringenberg Electric in the amount of $270,993 and to authorize the city's manager and finance officer to sign those necessary documents. Robin, you're here to tell us about that traffic signal.
Yes, this is, we had two bidders. The low bid was slightly below our engineer's estimate. A couple of details that I want to share with you. We will be looking to take out one of the bid items of $41,000 for the temporary traffic signal. We were planning on borrowing the signals for the traffic control during the course of this project that will start shortly before school starts. So we'll get the drivers used to having that signal there long before the permanent installation. So we will have temporary signals up, but because the DOT has signals available, we're planning on not using that bid item. So there will be a $41,000 deduction.
Wow. Nice.
It'd be a nice reduction, and the fact that we'll have these temporary signals up during the course of this operation will get everybody on board with how it should operate, and it'll give us an idea how we want to set the times if we want to modify things before the permanent installation is done. So we recommend approval of the Ringberg bid.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Rux and a second from Councilwoman Langer. And I want to also thank you for charging after that. I know it's been a lot of interest in this project over the years. Councilman Ronay.
And so you'll just come back with a change order? Is that the thought?
It would be done as a change order, correct.
Perfect, okay.
So we've got a motion and a second. Councilman Rux has a question. Statement.
When is the expected completion for the original?
So much of this is dependent upon the materials. They'll have all the footings and everything in well before freeze up. We're expecting it to be done in November.
Nice.
Yeah.
And thank you for not only you, but for the council for doing this. This is not one of the lights that was recommended that in the study that needed to be done, but we decided to go ahead and do it anyway.
It needs that.
Sounds good. So we've got our motion. We've got our second. All discussion is clear. So Carl, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Reif.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Langer.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Thank you, Robin, for joining us. Next, we've got payment request for the airport improvement project, payment number 6. For Helms and Associates, $1,572.50. Payment 30 for the master plan to Helms and Associates for $2,015.68. Payment 17 for the taxiway geometry also to Helms for $2,067.82. And finally, payment number 5 for the apron project to Helms for $6,181.06. So, Rich, you're here to tell us all about those.
Yep, so the first one, payment number, where am I at here? So the payment to Helms and Associates for $1,572 is for assistance in acquisition of our snow removal equipment. I've come to the council before with this, and this project is 90% federal, 3.5% state, and 6.5% city. We're moving forward with this. There was a little bit of a holdup on the Buy American clause, but it was approved, and we've got the snow blower is being built. The start date on that is June 8th, and then we're still waiting on a start date for the de-icing, liquid de-icing truck. So those are the two pieces of equipment that we're acquiring through that. The next one, invoice number 6, is for miscellaneous services. Wait a minute, what did I do here? Sorry, I just talked about that one. So the next one is for the airport master plan, airport layout plan, and aerial approach survey. And if you recall, we started this project in January of 2019. So payment number 30, I've never heard of an AIP project with this many payments on it, but we're 100% complete on this, so we're moving toward project closeout. All three of the line items on the project are 100% complete, and that is for 2015 and 68 cents. And this one goes back to when the federal share was 90%, but the state share was 5% instead of 3.5%. So this is a 2019 AIP, or 2018, sorry. And the next one is construction administration residence engineering services. And this is for taxiway geometry improvements. We've held several meetings on this one. Sharp was the low bidder on this project. We actually have a hard start date now of May 28th. So on May 28th, we're going to shut down the main runway, and that'll be shut down for a maximum of 28 days. So I've communicated that to SkyWest and Delta and all of our airport tenants and users. And the final one is design services on the GA apron project phase 1, and that is $6,181.06, and that's for design work to date. And that'll be a project in 2022 for phase 1.
Move approval of all payments.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Rux and a second from Councilman Ronayne to make these 4 payments to Helms and Associates. Any questions for Rich while he's here? Otherwise, Carl, would you give me a roll call vote?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the review and approval of claims. We've got bills, which would be the list for April 19th, 2021. Can I get a motion to pay our bills?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion from Councilman Ronayne, second Councilman Lunsman. Anything from anybody on any of those? Otherwise, Carl, would you give me a roll call vote?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the city manager's report. Joe, what have you got for us here tonight?
A couple little things. First of all, we are in the soft kickoff of the budget process for 2022. The department heads are now starting to work on their proposals. Later on this month, we'll provide you a little bit more opportunity for discussion on some of the preliminary stuff. And with that, I put some reading material on your desk in front of you to help prepare you for that. If you have any questions ahead of that discussion, feel free to reach out. But probably the most important news of the week is Wednesday is Administrative Professionals Day, and we have many folks here throughout our organization and all of our operations that really are the oil in the machine, our administrative assistants, several clerical positions, that they're the first people that our public talks to as they enter the door, as they pick up the phone and call the city. Without these positions, most of us department heads would just be running around lost, quite frankly. So we appreciate them and just wanted to give them a little shout out. Again, that's every year this time in April, but they're important to us every day. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Joe. Definitely appreciate that. Anything else before we
That
vote
was enough.
to adjourn this meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
I got a motion, Councilman Ronayne, and a second, Councilman Reinbold, to adjourn this meeting. Carl, would you give us the last roll call vote of the night, please?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.